So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and wherever you're listening from. My name is Gracia Maria, and I'm so happy to be here and share with you in this online conference about ChatGPT do's and don'ts. I want to thank Nelly for the invitation to be part of this wonderful online event where you have learned so far a lot about many things. And I hope that this PD is really useful as you move forward in your planning for your classes or in your professional growth in general. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about what generative AI is and how it plays a role in learning. We're going to discuss what is ChatGPT, why ChatGPT, and then some do's and don'ts. And then I'm going to share a little bit about my experience and reflections on using this tool and integrating it as part of technology for learning. So let's begin by talking about generative AI and learning. And when I was preparing for this session, I was looking for definitions that could actually tell us a little bit about generative AI. And of course, we know AI stands for artificial intelligence, and it's that capacity of generating text and images or other type of data using models, logarithms, right? And often this is in response to prompts from users. And the prompts are those things that we tell the computer or the platform or the AI to do, right? We are the ones in charge of doing that. So keep that in mind. We are the ones in charge of doing that. Then it's important to think about this because sometimes when things are too new for people, people become a little bit scared and they tend to stay away. But I think, and this is something that all people that have been involved in AI and everybody that has been working and integrating AI into teaching and learning, we have learned is that the more that we use the generative AI models, the more quote unquote they learn and they are starting to become better in what they produce because the patterns and the structure of what we are providing them, those prompts that we are providing them, are training the data to behave in certain ways and to generate information that is becoming more and more accurate. Now, this does not mean that there are not going to be inaccuracies because if you remember, they are going, if you think about it, it's like going into a big library of information and just getting the titles and then just putting them together. And then us, as the analytical part of the process, because we are the one with the cognition and the analytical brain, we are the ones that determine whether that information is good or bad. But the more we prompt, the more that we provide that input to the generative AI models, the better that they are going to be and the better service that they are going to provide to us. Because that's something that we need to remember. They are providing a service to us. It's not that they're doing things for us like we're not thinking about them. They are providing a service that we need, that we interpret, that we analyze, adapt, and that then we use and integrate. And for us educator, that we integrate into our lessons or into the work that we're doing with the students. So that's important to keep in mind. When we also think about the history of AI, it's important to think that this is not something that just resulted yesterday or last year or that it started with ChatGPT. No, this is AI actually started in the 50s. And it started as automation and it started as platforms that were designed to create sound, to create text, to play music, automatization. Then it became something related to creating things based on commands, generating speech, and different types of projects related to AI. Something like, for example, that was done in 1956 was a summer AI project in Dartmouth. And this was related to finding finding artificial intelligence and using it as a field of study. So it's important to think about this, that this is not something recent. In the 70s, for example, AI already started generating images and generating paintings. Then in the 2000s, it already started creating and classifying images. and it was used for speech recognition. It started to be used to create models that would generate speech or natural language processing. So this is not something new. This is not something that happened yesterday or last year, and it did not start with ChatGPT. It started way before that. 2021, we started to see DALL-E, all those beautiful, colorful images that we see when we provide the correct prompts. And then ChatGPT actually started in 2007 with the generative pre-trained transformer number one. Then we had the number two in 2019. And then just recently, 2023, we had the GPT-4, which is the one that really has caused all the stir and all the reticence from academics saying, we don't want to use this can cause plagiarism. And of course it can. And as we go on in the discussion, you will see why. But it has to do with us understanding, like I said at the beginning, these models, these tools are at our service, and we decide how to use them and what we do with them. And we, of course, have to establish those guidelines and those ethical considerations. So what is ChatGPT? I found this very interesting video that I want you to listen to, and it's only 2 minutes, so we're going to listen to it. And then I'm going to expand a little bit about what it is and why we should use it and how we should use it. So let's take a listen.
Back in 2022, on the last day of November, ChatGPT was revealed to the world. In a matter of days, it became a viral sensation. But how did that happen? And exactly what is ChatGPT? OpenAI ChatGPT is a chatbot created as an advancement in the artificial intelligence industry. Behind its knowledge lies a massive amount of data, including books, articles, and web pages. ChatGPT doesn't just store all this data, it analyzes it. Basically, it thinks and acts like a human. It can understand various requests, effectively communicate in 90 different languages, and even recall details of an ongoing conversation. And then it runs past the competing tools by being accessible for free. There are thousands of examples of how to use ChatGPT already. You can make it write a cover letter for a new job, ask for an essay, give it a math problem. You can give ChatGPT a snippet of programming code to fix, and it will find the issue. Besides technical questions, you can go the creative route too and request a poem in the style of Shakespeare. ChatGPT will come up with perfectly rhyming lines. So what if you ask it to come up with a way to hack a website? It will say no. But here's the issue. While ChatGPT can decline harmful requests, it's not foolproof. There already have been ChatGPT examples of people getting around the restrictions with creative prompts, which could lead to things like cybercriminals exploiting the system to create ChatGPT malware. It's only natural that such a technological advancement will bring problems alongside solutions, and questions alongside answers. Will ChatGPT replace Google? Will it take over human jobs? That's a topic for another time. This was ChatGPT Explained. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for even more AI.
So if you see, this is like kind of a marketing video, but what I wanted you to see is how the platform actually works. And it's getting information from all these databases and quote unquote analyzing it, but it's really just putting it together and responding a prompt. The thing is, if your prompt is not accurate enough, it's not clear enough, if it doesn't provide the level of detail, it will give you just some general stuff, and it might throw in some things that are not real, some references that are not correct. And then that is when us as humans and analytical, critical, reflective thinkers come in and determine whether the information is correct. What I can tell you, and what I think is the benefit of ChatGPT, and we will go over those a little bit later also, but I can tell you is that it allows you to use a little bit more effective use of time in terms of things that you can do quicker. So unless, and you can do this with ChatGPT, but there are other AI generative models like EduAid. If you want to write a lesson plan and you have the ideas, but it's going to take you 2 hours, if you put the prompt in ChatGPT that is going to take you perhaps 2 minutes with all the level of detail of what you need in that lesson plan, it's going to come up in probably 1 to 2 minutes. And then you go into it and you just adapt, remove, put in, and that's going to make your time more efficient. So you're not going to be doing this for 2 or 3 hours. You might be doing it for half an hour. So it's time management wise is very helpful. So when you think about it that way, but it doesn't mean that you have to rely on everything that it gives you just blindly. You need to really go into it and analyze every line that it's written there. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. And that's part of also of our ethical considerations. If we use it, then we need to cite it, right? And there are ways to cite ChatGPT.
Back in 20.
So why ChatGPT? Well, it helps us differentiate the learning experience. So think you are in a multi-level classroom. If you use ChatGPT, it's going to help your learners use the language that they are capable of using, working with the model, and actually having a conversation with it. And you can facilitate those conversations. That way your students are getting what they need with what they have. And they're going to be improving based on those competencies. So that I think that's one part of it that I like about the differentiating the learning experience. It provides that language practice because the students are actually having this conversation. For example, I've been using lately Copilot that is paired with DALL-E and to create images for the cover of a book that I'm co-editing with some colleagues. And I'm giving the Copilot some ideas of what I want, and it's giving me information. When they give me the images, I just tell Copilot, please remove this, please add this, and it's working on that. So I'm actually kind of having a conversation with the model, right? So it allows for that language practice, coming up with terms, learning terms from what the model generates for you. It also, like I was saying, provides the teaching support where your tasks can be done a little bit quicker, but you need to always double check what you're getting. And also, like I was saying, learning support. Integrating technology into learning. That's really important. And that's part of something that we need to do. Unfortunately, for us as educators, we cannot shy away from technology. And we have to integrate technology because that's part of our lives. We are no longer in that type of school where we would use a printed encyclopedia. Everything is digital. Everything is connected with technology. We cannot shy away from it. We cannot deny it. We cannot dismiss it. So we need to integrate it into what we're doing. And then another advantage is that it adapts to all the subjects. So because it has access to all these databases, you can work on it for any subject, for science, for social studies, for mathematics, for any subject that you are teaching at any level that you are teaching. And the good thing is that you can, again, differentiate that learning experience and differentiate it based on the levels of if you're teaching language in language levels that your students have, but also if you're teaching students in elementary or young learners or high school students or university students, you can differentiate the level of complexity of the tasks at those levels too. So that's why I would recommend ChatGPT. Now, what is ChatGPT for us as teachers? Well, it's a way to personalize tasks. We can come up with 10 different lesson plans depending on our students. And we don't need 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month to do those 10 lesson plans. We can do them in 1 hour. And we can adapt them easily and they can be ready for our students. Then again, we're differentiating instruction. We can enhance the type of assignments that we give. Right? They can be project-based, they can be task-based. We can use all the approaches that we already know by using the tool, and that's going to be helping us. And not only ChatGPT, I can say, like I mentioned, there are other AI generative models like EduAid, like Bard, like Bing, like DALL-E, that are going to enhance. And I'm going to give you an example of the work that I did with a teacher using Bard and DALL-E. Then develop language skills because you're continuously inputting the prompt students and us are thinking about the prompt that we're going to input into the model, and then we're going to be increasing and improving our language learning skills. Exploring content, those connections to research heuristics, right? How we are finding out more information and in less time that we would normally do it if we did it that traditional way. Learning becomes more interactive now that ChatGPT can incorporate other tools like DALL-E and other image generators. It makes it even better. We can reinforce concepts, and we can use it to support our students in areas that require more practice. I think it also allows for our students continue to explore topics that we talk about in the classroom and being more curious about them, going beyond the topic, because they're going to be engaged in this. Apps, technology in general, engage our learners, and they are a way to motivate them to learn. So I think it is a good way, and it's a good approach to integrating technology, as long as we do it wisely, right? Those are things that we need to consider, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in the do's and don'ts. Now, what is GPT for our learners? It allows for instant interaction. And remember that our learners are part of a generation that require that instant feedback. We don't need to be there. The model can help us with that, can support us with that. We can just facilitate it. Like I was mentioning before, differentiating learning. We can use different approaches depending on the learners that we have in the classroom. When we have multi-level classrooms, in language classrooms, that is usual for us, we can differentiate that learning using ChatGPT or using any generative AI model. Develop their skills, it becomes ongoing learning. Learning becomes more engaging, more interactive, more motivating. For students that have difficulties in terms of special needs, provides that accessibility through different devices, through different ways of accessing information. It also promotes critical thinking because, like I said, you don't accept the information as you get it. You instead are analyzing, is this information correct? Then that connects you to look for more information and verify that information. It allows for that fact checking, so that promotes critical and reflective thinking. And it also moves them into independent learning because they start doing things on their own and they start finding information and learning on their own. And they get, like I said, that immediate feedback, and that allows them to reflect on how technology helps them and how technology progresses and how technology can be useful for them in the long run. So very useful for learners as well. Now, what are some do's that teachers and students should consider? Well, we can use it for lesson planning. We can use it to create content, to answer questions that we have around a topic, maybe to flip our classrooms, to develop critical thinking exercises, to prepare tests that are not necessarily multiple choice, but more reflective, more for creating awareness, more for learning. It can help us collect feedback. So the exercises that our students are doing, we can get information on the areas that they need more work on, and we can prepare assignments around those areas that they need more reinforcement. It can be a way to do, if we're talking about our professional development, integrating technology into our workshops, but it also has to consider ethical considerations. And I want to take the time here to say, we need to cite when we use AI. We need to be open and say, I generated this with AI and this was adapted from there, and this is the literal part, this is the adapted part, and we cite it. The APA does now provides, and universities provide the guidelines on how to cite AI. So that's important for us as teachers, but it's important for us as students as well. That's why I included there in the do's. For students, a do would be exploring concepts, learning more about ideas, and being curious about topics, practicing their language, helping them to study in a more interactive and engaging way, developing critical thinking, supporting their research. Like I said, they provide a prompt, ChatGPT will provide information, and then they will verify that information. Their fact checking is their research. It can help them with writing, like to see this, they can write something and they can tell the model to review what they have written and rewrite it for them, and they can ask the model to rewrite it as many times as necessary, and that way they are looking at different ways of writing. They can ask the model, for example, to write it in a courageous way, or to write it in a depressive way, or to write it in a more engaging way, or to write it as a elevator speech, for example. So that provides writing assistance for learners. So it is important to see the benefits of it and how it can enhance their learning. Can also prepare them for tests because they can review topics and information. It also, if, for example, if we have students that we are engaging, especially in high school, that we engage them in robotics or in coding, it can help them understand the concepts a little bit better. It can provide visuals for them to understand that. But again, we need to also teach our students the ethical use of the AI generated models and ChatGPT. So that's important to always keep in mind and not forget. Don't use it to plagiarize, right? Don't just copy paste the information, pass it as your own. You need to cite. We need to cite as teachers. We need to model for our students, and we need to teach them how to cite. We need to teach them how to use the tool responsibly for their benefit, but not in detriment of their ethics and their honesty and their academic honesty. It does not substitute work or developing competencies it really does the opposite. It really makes you work a little bit more, but it makes you work analytically more. Not the heavy lift of writing everything, but the analytical piece. And that's what we want in our students, because that's how we make them become independent long life learners. Not writing, not looking through different websites. No. If they are able to analyze what the model gives them, that's a good thing for their competency development. It should not be pasted directly without reviewing to a task, because that's cheating and that's plagiarizing, and shouldn't be used for unethical purposes. So we need to be careful about that, especially when we are using it and introducing it to our learners. We need to model what is the ethical and responsible way of using it. Now, my experience, I have two experiences using ChatGPT. We used it with the teacher that I have been mentoring in order to integrate literature, art, and writing and speaking in her classroom. This was a very interesting experience because she actually did this in a matter of 2 weeks. So we started thinking about ways to integrate it into her learning and to engage her students, because they were not really very motivated about the literature work that they were doing in the classroom, and it is a requirement in her school. So what she did is they started reading the narratives and the literature that they had to read, the stories, everything related to their literature class. And she had been connecting it with art, but that connection was a little bit amiss. When we introduced ChatGPT, we combined it with Bard and then DALL-E. It was a very interesting experience because they started using the prompts. She gave them an exercise where they would read the literature, the history that they were going to, and the story that they were going to review. It was about X number of characters. And then in that reading, they were supposed to choose 2 characters and determine the moral values or the values that those characters had. That was one step. Then in the second step, they would say, how do their personal lives relate to those characters in the narratives that they were reading? And they would choose one. It could be courageous, passionate, it could be committed. And then what they would do is they would provide a prompt to the model, and they would say something around the lines of, Marisa is courageous and she does XX, like the character in the story. And they would ask the model to generate an image of Marisa with those characteristics. And that was so great. She had so many, and unfortunately, I cannot show you those videos, but she had some incredible videos of the joy and the motivation of those learners. And then they were learning their literature narrative, they were working on art, and they were actually improving their writing and their analytical skills. So that's why I say Don't shy away from the technology because it's useful. Another way that we have used it, this is with a teacher in Honduras in an undergrad program for agricultural students. We have been using the prompts to improve their writing and their listening. And the way that we have done that with them, and we have a presentation that we're going to do at TESOL in March, the way that they have been doing it is they have started with simple prompts. They tell me about motivation, for example. And then the model would say and give them like a textbook definition of motivation and everything from the dictionaries and encyclopedias. And then they will start adding things. Tell me about motivation in terms of learning. Tell me about motivation in terms of learning a language. Tell me about motivation in terms of learning a language in an agricultural context. So adding to the prompt. So they would see the difference on how the model would generate different ideas based on the prompt that they were given. And they started to understand, based on experience, learning by doing, how the prompt determines what the models gives. That was one step. And then they would verify the information. And that's where the critical thinking and reflection started. They would start to verify whether the information that it was given, that the model was given, was completely accurate. And then they would statistically determine it was 70% accurate, it was 80% accurate. They would also ask the model for references, and they would check whether the references were correct, if the references existed, if they could verify the references actually. So that's a way of fact checking, of generating critical thinking, of generating curiosity, and of engaging learners. So these are two experiences that I have had that I would say have been positive. One of my next steps is try this with graduate students that I have been working with in Nicaragua in a master's program. I want to try this with them and see how it works. And I'm going to try them with them as a model so that they can try it with their students. Most of them are teaching elementary. So it's going to be very interesting because right now, the way that I have tried it is with high school students and with undergraduate students. So their level of critical thinking and reflection is a little bit higher. I want to see how this works with elementary students in a very, of course, secure and safe setting and keeping those ethical guidelines in place. So if you write to me, I can share with you my experiences about this. My reflections is don't do this just, I'm going to choose ChatGPT, and no, make a plan. Make a plan, decide what you want to do, start little. Don't start with a huge thing that you are not going to be able to do and become overwhelmed. So make a plan. Make decisions based on your context. And that means the technology you have available, the level of digital literacy your students have, and how well versed you yourself are in terms of technology. And before actually bringing it into the classroom, try it out yourself several times in different ways. Don't bring it to the classroom if you're not familiar enough with the tool and comfortable enough with the tools. Make sure that you also have those accessibility things in place where you are providing tutorials for your students. Share with your learners and explain to them this is a tool that can be used for good or for bad. If you are wise, you can have very good consequences on using the tool. If you're not very wise, then you can have negative consequences. So be trustful, be trusting, be truthful, and be trusting, right? Have those conversations with your students. Your learners are very smart, and your learners are going to understand what you're trying to do and how you're trying to help them. Make sure that you are creating together and building together. If you do this, you're going to learn together, and the impact of this is going to be even more positive. And the level of engagement, like we saw with that teacher that I was sharing with you about, it definitely shows. And we were so happy when we did that project because she had been doing many things to build their engagement and motivation, and she finally was able to do it with this generative AI model. So it's possible to do that. Also integrate several AI tools. Different AI tools, make sure you explore them. We just recently completed with Electronic Village Online, which I recommend to you for next year, beginning of 2025. Small commercial there. That there are several AI tools out there that can help you in different ways, and that the models have been created for different things. There are AI models for lesson plans. There are AI models that integrate lesson plans and PowerPoint presentations. So there are many things out there that can support teachers, and there are many things out there that can support students specifically. So look for those AI tools and make sure, if you want to know more, you can write to me. I can share with you information around this. So make sure that you're looking at different AI tools for the thing. So you need to do your research, right? And you need to share with your students how you're doing that research and how they can do the research too. And like we always say in education, in all these processes, make sure that you have fun. Learning has to be joyful. Learning doesn't have to hurt. Learning doesn't mean pain. It means joy. It means fun. It means wanting to engage with learning. These are some references that you might find useful. I will make sure that I share the PowerPoint. And thank you. Write to me and let me know how your experience with generative AI models, ChatGPT, or other tools goes. And I will be happy to answer your questions and learn more from you. So be ready to share. Thank you for having me. And I hope that you have a good rest of your day and a good rest of the conference.